All right, welcome back to another Wright Stew podcast. I am Paul Stewart.
And I am Brian Wright. Still Friday. Hey,
Doing
Paulie,
it.
we made it.
We made it.
Almost to the 50th episode. Almost. Not quite there. I know we're teasing that a little bit.
This is
Big
episode
announcements.
49. We got a big announcement on episode 50 coming up. I think everybody's going to like it, love it, want some more of it, to quote the girl. So we'll get there. But some somber news yesterday. Mr. Baseball Bob Uecker passed away at the age of 90. Really known as and treated himself. Had he not said it so much, nobody probably would have known. But a very mediocre, very probably below average big league ball player. He made fun of himself a lot, which was always a lot of fun and part of who he was. And then got into acting. Was on several shows. Was on Johnny Carson several times. Actually hosted Saturday Night Live. And then I think his probably most famous role outside of actual baseball was Harry Doyle, the announcer for the Cleveland Indians on the movie Major League. So very sad news.
Hey, I would only argue, and you said acting. I feel like there's certain guys, and he was one of them, that like he was just comfortable being himself. I didn't feel like he played kind of the same character no matter what he did.
Yeah,
and it was just him.
Yeah.
And he just had one of those personalities, right, that people kind of gravitated toward. You know, still a Hall of Famer, right? Still something made it in the Hall of Fame as an announcer, I guess. Is that right?
Yeah.
And
I
so
yeah.
was very comfortable in his skin. I think you and I can appreciate that, right? As you get older, you kind of just, this is who I am and this is what I believe. And he felt like he got there really early. And man, what a heck of a career. Give me some of your favorite scenes, lines, quotes that maybe, I feel like a lot of times you can come up with stuff off the top of your head.
Yeah. So I remember as a kid, he was in all the Miller Lite commercials. And I remember my dad and my uncle quote, "Front row, must be in the front row." Like, so anytime we went to a game, we were typically a 300 level family. We were up the top somewhere. And every time we went, my dad's front row, because that was one of his Bob Uecker commercials. And then again, seeing him on a lot of that, those commercials were always funny. And then I got a chance to meet him in 2000. I shared this a couple of days ago, but I was at my first big league camp with the Milwaukee Brewers. This was 2000, and he was the radio guy. And so I saw him walk in one of the first days of camp, and I just got done reading that book, October 1964, by David Halberstam, about the Cardinals and Yankees World Series. So it kind of chronicled both the Yankees and Cardinals seasons. So Uecker was the backup catcher on that team. And one of the stories I remember reading in the book, so Bob, it was team picture day. And so Bob Uecker was sitting next to Bob Gibson. And so this is 1964, still a lot of racial tension in the United States, so a lot of things going on. And so Uecker and Bob Gibson were sitting on the front row together. And Uecker said, "Hey, let's hold hands for this picture." And so, Bob Gibson, a black guy, and Bob Uecker, a white guy, held hands in St. Louis, which was a pretty racially charged area at the time. And so they hold hands, they take the picture, they kind of laugh about it, move on about their day, go do their thing. Fast forward a month, they're doing team picture night in St. Louis. So we've all been to these games. First 10,000 people get a team picture. It got to the point where the pictures were printed that day. They were ready to hand them out, and somebody noticed Uecker and Gibson holding hands on the front. We're like, we can't give this out. We just can't do this. And so they scrapped it, had to do another team picture and read it. So he's like, yeah, we caught some grief for that, but it was all in fun and a good time. And but again, it kind of shows you the kind of fun-loving nature that Bob Uecker was. So I got to recount that story with him. I asked him about it, and he was like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "They were so ticked off at us. They were really mad about it." And I chatted with him for a few minutes, and man, you could just see as he walked around that clubhouse. And again, this was in 2000. I know he was around longer. Just how much the guys on the team loved him.
Yeah.
And he treated me, a guy who was wearing number 60 on his back. He treated me the same as he did Jeff Jenkins, who was a star at the time on the team, or John Jaha, some of these bigger name guys who were on the team. I'm talking about the 2000 Brewers. Not too many big time stars on that team, but he treated me, a guy who's a first year big league camp guy, the same as he did the superstars. Just gained a lot of respect for him, and it was, for me, it was just really cool to meet like a baseball icon. So yeah, so RIP Mr. Baseball. Did you have a favorite scene from Major League, or Bob Uecker?
Oh yeah. I mean, especially when the Wild Thing came in and he throws one about 12 foot outside, and he's like, just a bit outside. I mean,
We still hear that. You still hear that
I still say it.
we still say it, like we'll be coaching our boys and somebody will throw a pitch, way off, and you'll hear somebody, inevitably, like 9 times out of 10, you'll hear a parent say, just a bit outside. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I like the other one that's not, is a little bit harder to relay, because I think he was going off with this guy, going back and forth with this guy, and it's like, that's too high, that's too high, that's too far. And then it's like, it's a home run, and it's like, dude, yeah,
oh,
that's not too high. Yeah.
too high. What's it mean, too high? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, that was good. I watched a couple of clips over the past couple of days of him on Johnny Carson, and he's just so deadpan, and he's just really, really
But
effective.
it felt like that was just him, right? He was just,
Yeah, it really did. But he's the kind of guy who's like, man, he's batting 205, but he's great in the clubhouse. Like, there's guys like that. And it feels like David Ross kind of became that guy a few years ago with the Cubbies. There's a handful of guys like that who just make life better for the team. Kevin Millar seemed to be kind of that guy with the 04 Sox, 03, 04 Sox. I just watched a documentary on that team. And there's some guys that are just baseball clubhouse guys. And we talk a lot about games on the games on the field, on the court, whatever it is. But those are the memories, I think, Brian, that you and I hold the closest, are the bus rides, the clubhouse.
oh yeah.
Just the characters that you play with and you come across. And clearly Bob was, Uecker was one of the greatest of all time from that perspective. But there's so many guys who you just hear the names and you recall, like, oh man, I remember when he did this or did that, and you just kind of inside, you're like, oh, that warms my heart. Yeah.
I've got a couple of quotes that I looked up, because he was famous for giving these great one-liners kind of after games or post games. And he's like, one of the ones that made me laugh was, I remember one time I was batting against the Dodgers in Milwaukee. They led 2-1 in the bottom of the ninth. Bases loaded, 2 outs. The pitcher has a full count on me. And I look over in the Dodgers dugout, and they're all in street clothes. It's like and then this other one that, as I was reading some articles, that caught my eye was, I knew my career was over in 1965. My baseball card came out with no pitcher. And it's like, what? I mean, just classic lines. The way to catch a knuckleball is to wait till it stops rolling and then pick it up. I mean, I got two more. If a guy hits 300 every year, what does he have to look forward to? I always tried to stay around 190 with 3 or 4 RBI, and I try to get them all in September. That way, there was always something to talk about during winter. And then his last one, I mean, he's got tons of them.
Yeah.
I think my top salary was maybe, $17,000 in 1969, and 11 of that came from selling other players' equipment. I mean, that was that generation to where.
Oh, they were still working in the off season too. Yeah, he grew up in that era when you weren't making a living just by playing baseball. A lot of those guys were working off season jobs, and it was pretty incredible.
Yeah, man, and he was a character. And again, I think he's one of those guys that's very comfortable in the skin. He got his voice early and did. What a great life, though. I mean, if you can make it to that age and then ultimately do everything and accomplish everything that he's done, I bet he never felt like he worked a day in his life. I mean, just because of being around baseball keeps you young, and then being an announcer. Yeah, what a great life.
Yeah. So, speaking of off-season jobs, did you have any jobs in the off-season what were your jobs in the off-season?
So I worked at Kohl's one time. Worked at Kohl's at soccer. I wasn't on the floor. I think you made it to the floor. They wanted to keep me in the back. and didn't want me interacting with the public, the general public.
Couldn't be trusted out there, huh? Or just a
No.
scanning?
Then I substitute taught for a couple of years,
Okay.
and those are experiences too, because you're so close to the kid's age, but you're trying to have authority, and I ended up coaching or teaching algebra for like a month and a half, and so you're going home and study, and I'm like, what am I doing, dude? Trying to figure out how to teach ninth graders algebra or 10th graders, and
you could barely
it's
get by
like,
yourself.
yeah, I'm definitely. And then you're up there and you're like, did I do that right? And so, obviously wasn't a math major. Should have never been doing that. But so yeah, a couple of jobs like that. How about yourself, Paulie?
Yeah. So you mentioned like retail. So I was very fortunate and very blessed. My first actual real job was professional baseball.
Yeah.
Pro baseball. And then that first off season I was working out, I was like, man, I'm just kind of hanging out all day. So I got a job at Hudson Belk.
Yeah.
I worked in the men's department, so I was like the Tommy Hilfiger, Nautica, Polo.
Did you get free clothes?
So yeah, you get a discount. It wasn't great. Retail, everybody should work retail just for the experience, not.
Hey, that will humble you and treat you and show you how you need to treat those people in those roles. Growing up, I worked at the biscuit company, bro.
Ooh.
And there's some rude. I was in the back cooking, making biscuits, and doing all the stuff. 15, 16 years old, and eating. Now you can eat freely, which was awesome at that age. Dude, you ran into some people, and until this day, it forces you to treat people differently when you have worked in that role. No question.
Yeah. Just you give more grace, you give more patience, and it's. But I did have a manager at Bell who treated me like I was just a regular like 17, 18-year-old kind of snot-nosed kid. I'm like, say, hey, and I wasn't like, I never said, it was like, do you know I just signed for like $250,000 and
right. I don't need this job.
Yeah, I'm just kind of passing time here, buddy. I need some cheaper jeans. So I did that. I worked construction one off season.
Ooh,
I was terrible at that.
Yeah,
really bad. But the guy who hired me had a son that was on the high school baseball team, so he did me a favor. But I was awful at that. I turned into just towards the end. They saw that I had no real skill, so I turned into just like, hey, Paul, can you carry that stack of wood from here to there? Can you sweep the floor? Like I was a laborer. I was a laborer.
Like you didn't even have to speak English. You could have been a non-English.
I didn't have to. I could have been a mute and did that.
Yeah.
And then substitute taught as well. And I think that's realistically the best for a minor league baseball player. Probably the best off-season job because you kind of create your own hours.
Yeah, you're always done by 3 or 3:15.
Always done by 3 so you can work out. Yeah. And a lot of times I would go to different schools and I would intentionally seek out the baseball coach and I would make friends with the baseball coach. I say, hey, if I need to get some work done, do you have a catcher for me? So I was kind of building a little repertoire of catchers I could throw bullpens to because that's not always easy to find in the offseason as well. Somebody to throw to. But then to your point about being young and the substitutes, I was 19 years old, and I went to an elementary school.
Well, that's a big difference.
So this was Underwood Elementary over in the Five Points area of Raleigh. So it's like it's like a magnet school or something. Anyway, I went there one day, just took a job, and then somebody said, "Hey, can you do this again tomorrow?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So they liked me, and then they offered me like a full-time.
Like teacher assistant?
Like a teacher was going on maternity leave and she had a bunch of the different specials. So for like 2 months, I became the teacher at 19 years old. I was teaching patterning to like kindergartners, what's in the news to like second and third, like we would read news.
But we're still doing that kind of today.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing now. So you kind of done full circle.
I had an architecture class for like 5th graders.
Okay.
And then I had like another, I can't remember the other one. I had another class, but I was like the actual like lesson plans. And I'm like, dude, I'm 19 years old. You guys are.
And you never went to college at that point.
No, I was just a high school graduate, but just went there. The architecture class, we built those bridges with like toothpicks and glue and stuff. So that's
funny. Yeah, that
was a good time. But
Did the kids beat you? Were they better than you at building those?
No, no, the kids were much smarter than me. And then one of the days we were doing like Venn diagrams, and I had another teacher in the room. And I did something wrong. And like one of the kids was like, Mr. Stewart, that should be this. And I was like, that was a test. I was just making sure you guys are paying it. And I was like, clearly wrong. I'm like, dude, I'm only like 6 or 7 years older than you, kid. Like, you should
Right.
know this.
Right.
Yeah,
You're
so
smarter than me.
yeah,
You do
that's what it
IQ
was like.
tests. Yeah.
I would try to do high school gym classes if I could, because you got paid the same as if you did gym class, as if you did like the most
Good
sophisticated math
algebra.
or science. Yeah, and that was always a good time.
I had a
Uh,
special needs class for a bit.
those are tough days, but really rewarding days. Did a few of those. That was something else. So the other thing too with the substitute teacher, we all had subs in high school. They're not expected to do a whole lot. So I would typically come in. There's a video ready to play. You administer some sort of test or exam, or the teacher gives them some sort of reading with a worksheet, busy work kind of sort of. So I would go in and I would dispel all the stuff, especially as I did it a little longer and at the high school age. Like I was like, all right, look, guys, we know the deal here. You've got a worksheet to do. You got to turn it in by the end of the class period. I don't care if you do it in groups. I know Nerdy McNerdson over there is going to do all the work, and you're just going to copy his paper anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So look, rather than go through it, let's
So
just.
you encourage cheating.
I didn't encourage change. I encourage collaborative work.
Right.
The better way to put it, right? Because
Yeah.
if you go into a real world environment, that's
I
what you
do think
anyway.
that's changed now in school.
Yeah.
I do think they are encouraged to be more collaborative.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's the way that you work. That's the way you and I work in real world, and that's the best way to do it. So, teamwork, right? Sports comes back to sports.
Yeah.
So, anyway, yeah. So if you're a minor league ball player out there listening, take a look into substitute teaching. Things are a little nicer now as we learn from Nolan McLean, but take a look at it. It's a good.
Well, dude, I think now with what they make, you probably would want to do something, but dude, if you lived at home,
You could supplement your income with lessons and things like
yeah,
that.
dude, it's better. It's better.
Better life for you, minor leaguers. So, all right. So this is episode 49. We've got big episode number 50 tomorrow. We've been teasing a little bit. Big announcement tomorrow, so be ready for that. Brian and I are super excited about it.
NFL playoffs tomorrow too. Good fun weekend. A lot of sports. Some people off on Monday. Either way, national championship Monday. A lot of things to look forward to.
A lot of football still to play in the NFL, and then one more in college. So, hey, thanks for listening today. We appreciate it. Make sure you listen tomorrow for the big announcement, and then we'll catch you again soon.
Out, go Pack.